Hello, welcome to Conversations The Journey. My name is Ellis Rice and I'll be your host for today. Here at Conversations, we explore what we call the epic ordinary. Your ordinary story may be ordinary to you because it's your everyday life, but to some of us listening, it could be an epic journey. Today we're joined by my buddy, brother from another mother, Jerome Eadeh. I've known him for the span of about 30 years now, and we've shared life. So welcome, Jerry.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. How you doing today, man?
Okay.
Cool. So you've heard me talk about this show since its inception probably 7 years ago. We've talked about it, and now we finally get to do it. And I appreciate you taking the time to share your story. So, thanks. Jerry.
Yes.
As we do on Conversations, tell us a little bit about where you're from, your beginnings, and what life was like, a snapshot of your childhood life.
I was born in 1965. Actually, the height of it was just a little bit after the height of the hippie era, right? The 63-ish. But I was born in 65 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Butterworth Hospital. And I had an ordinary life. West Michigan is a little different than East Michigan in that it's very Dutch on the west side. And there's a lot of Polish there. There's a lot of German. So the west side of Michigan is the Amway and DeVos. You know, they kind of rule the whole Grand Rapids area. And
this is the Betsy DeVos from the Trump area, Trump administration. Yeah. Okay. Her family owned Amway originally. I don't know if they still do or not. And there's still pyramid schemes all over the place for Amway, but that's made them a lot of money. So they have concert halls and you know, they support the arts, but you know, it's very DeVos. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So what was your neighborhood like?
Well, I my first 5 years, I was right downtown Grand Rapids on Innis Street. Is real close to just I would say it was just east of downtown area. It was rough. My father never made a lot of money. My mother didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. But you know, we had a lot of fun. I'd play a lot with my friends and my brother's friends. He was a little older than me, and you know, it was just it was fun. You know, we get yelled at if we go jump on the shed or something. If we, you know, they get down from there. You know, it's little kids gonna get hurt or whatever. My dad was a shipping clerk for Kindle Furniture.
What was his name? Your parents' names?
Fahmy, or Fred in English, and Judith was my mom, and he came over. My dad came over on the Andrea Doria the day before it sank, by himself when he was 16. Came to New York, and then went directly to Washington, D.C., then up to Detroit. Took several years, but then he brought the rest of his family over, his mother, father, sister. From Palestine, from, now Israel. It's Ramallah is where they lived, actually. My dad was born in Jaffa, which is, I think it's Tel Aviv now. And so before the Israelis started taking over the whole place, my dad took off, and then a few years later, the whole family took off. And a lot of the families left. You know, we were Christian. We weren't Muslim. They were. So, according to my records, we were like one of the first. My father's family was one of the first followers of Jesus, which is surprising to me. So, when I hear some of my relatives nowadays say, I'm not very religious or anything like that, I just kind of snicker at them and just say, okay, go do what you do. And I'll stick with what my dad did, He eventually turned Greek Orthodox before he passed. And he was a furniture maker. He worked for Kindle Furniture. So we always had really nice furniture in the house, even though we never made a lot of money.
Nice.
So when I was 5, we moved over to the west side of Grand Rapids, a suburb called Standale, part of Walker Township. And I was there until I graduated high school, and then I finally moved out to college and to Kalamazoo, and spent 4 years in Kalamazoo. Then went down to Bloomington to get the master's degree, Indiana University.
So college, what did you go to college for?
For music. It was music education at first. But I decided I didn't like that after about the 4th year. So my final year of undergrad, I switched over to applied music or performance. Because that's just what it is. I mean, it's music. You play music. You don't work music. You play music. So you have to perform. And that's kind of been my motto for anything I do, is whatever job you have now, you have to perform it. You have to, it's like you're an actor for that job. And the more you know about it, the better. And so I always, when I teach drummers, if I teach any students to play drums in music, I first of all stress to them that they need to perform. They, stop reading it and just play it. My friend John Nashin actually told me that. He says, told me once, I was trying to do West Side Story with the orchestra, Henderson Orchestra, and he said, just don't read it, just play. And that just woke me up. It's like, wow, just play it, It's pseudo jazz, right? West Side Story. So if you ad-lib a little bit, you ad-lib a little bit, right?
As long as the conductor isn't going to lose their mind over it.
No, not especially for that. Some of them might, but not at that time.
So was that the first thing you wanted to be as a kid?
A drummer? No. I started out in the 5th grade I played cello. I wanted to do something in music other than singing. I couldn't sing. We had choir all through elementary school, but 5th grade, we had a chance to do that. And so I chose cello, and I was terrified. I was, I didn't want to go to any of the concerts. I didn't want to perform in front of anybody because I didn't know. I thought it was just, play the notes and finish it. So I said, I'll give that up after a year because my dad, I said, we didn't make a lot of money. So he had to rent his cello every month. And it wasn't even that good of a shape. So I felt bad that I was spending money that, I wasn't really good at. Wow. And then one summer, my grandmother, is after 5th grade, she brought over a snare drum to sell in a garage sale. And I started beating on it with some wooden spoons and I said, let me do this in 6th grade because that's when band started. Okay. We had orchestra before, band started in 6th grade. And I did that. I went to the band director and I did a little audition on it. And he said, well, I want you to play tuba. And I'm just like, okay, stereotype, no. I don't, I wouldn't mind playing it, but I don't want that stereotype. And 2, my father doesn't want to rent, or I don't want to rent a tuba have my parents' burden of trying to come up with money to rent it. He said, well, the school will give you the tuba and, to practice with and to play with. And I still said no, because I had the drum there. It was all ready to go. And so I stuck with drums. And I didn't really, all through junior high, I was always bullied by other kids, a lot of kids just like to beat me up all the time. I don't.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. And I never, maybe once only stood up for myself, but I just wanted to get through it. And, finally I stood up to one bully, and then it kind of all changed slowly. I got into high school. During my freshman year, I met a person that was in drum and bugle corps, and that kind of changed my life, actually, because I finally realized that you got to practice, and you gotta push it hard, and there's competition out there, and I took it more serious. I got pretty high up in the corps as a tenor player, multi-tenor, quads.
I think I saw a picture of you doing that once.
Yeah, I did it all through. I never did like snare, because I could never do all those rudiments. But I could move pretty well, and I knew the tenor pretty well. So and I even taught bands. I taught high schools. I taught drum corps. Wow. As a matter of fact, I taught a group out of Sault Ste. Marie in Canada on their tour, and they made it into Drum Corps Midwest Championships.
Nice.
And I helped. So, I was really proud of that. And, then that all ends at the age of 21. And, well, I could teach past that, but you can't march past the age of 21. So, yeah.
So you went off to college, got a degree in applied music.
Applied music, and then I was taking private lessons on timpani, because that was the thing I loved the most, was playing timpani, a timpanist. I don't know if you know what a timpani is, right?
Yeah,
It's also Sprock.
Kettle drums.
Bum, 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 da, da, kung, 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 kung. That's what, that wasn't the song that really stuck me to it. I'm a Beethoven fan myself, because it's nice classical music, and it's just not overdone. So, yeah. And so took some lessons, and before I was going to go to Curtis or study privately in Philadelphia with Jerry Carlos. But Curtis that he taught at was only undergrad. And so I was just going to go there and just study with him. And, be a daily worker like everybody else and just study timpani.
Okay.
But at the last minute, he decided that he was going to take the chairmanship of the percussion department at Indiana University. So I went over and I applied. I got in under the wire, just barely. And for the next 4 years, it took me 4 years to get my master's degree. I played my ass off all over the Midwest, pretty much for, I don't know, as many as, I probably played in 5 different ensembles, probably 3 at one time.
Wow.
So the playing there is, you can play, they'll let you play. And so that's what I did. And I stuck with timpani. I did 1 semester of just general percussion, but I stuck with timpani because that's my thing.
So you fast forward. I'd meet you out here in Las Vegas some years later.
Oh, yeah, well...
So how do you transition from the Midwest?
Well, in college, I moved in with my second roommate. I had a place, but after the first couple of semesters that summer, I moved in with a guy that was working at Indiana University in the Student Services Department. They had this handmade recording studio. We had big vault doors between the main studio and the control room. Big vault doors there. I mean, they're big metal that kind of accordion open, and there's a big dead air space in the middle. Had a 4-inch rubber floor.
Wow.
Amazingly quiet recording studio. All handmade mixing console with the best components. And I got a job working there, recording the School of Music, because they had so many concerts, they couldn't even put them in the School of Music. They had to go all over the city to do their performances. And our department was the one to go out to the remote locations, not the School of Music. They could do the School of Music just fine, but they couldn't handle all the other recordings.
So that's how you became a recording engineer.
Right, exactly. I started out as I used to duplicate tapes for the students, for the music students. Started in analog with the razor blades and the reel-to-reels, and so that was a whole great experience. And too bad I didn't get to the point of being able to repair and maintain those. That was for a whole other technical crowd that they didn't even like, doing the recording part. They just like working on the decks and stuff like that. But if I would have learned that, probably I'd still have analog decks today. So I don't have any analog decks anymore. But we had some pretty nice equipment back then. A lot of bloody fingers and stuff from the razor blades, and pulling the tape. The tape was on a big spindle that there's just a row of razor blades you pull, and if you get too close, the tip of your finger gets all bloody. So
Wow.
this is alcohol all over the place.
Blood
Band-Aids.
rituals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when I moved out here, we eloped out here the year before. Several months. Betsy and I. I met Betsy in Bloomington. Moved in with her my last few years.
What'd you like about Betsy?
What I like about her, she was always artsy fartsy. She is colorful. It was the 80s, going into the 90s. So, everything was high color for her. Swatch watches. She still has a Swatch watch, actually. Can't find a battery for it, but still has a Swatch watch. Yeah, so, and her roommates were pretty fun at the time. So, yeah, we did a few things that would tick off the landlord and stuff like that. Like once we were asking to get the floors refinished in one of the apartments, and they refused. So we decided to do it ourselves. So we moved everything out. This is kind of funny. We moved everything out, and me and Betsy's roommate. Betsy was working. I was, I didn't work too much, but we didn't do anything with the floor. We took it and put baby oil. We baby oiled the whole floor with Johnson & Johnson baby oil. And it kind of absorbed into the wood, and we're just like, okay, well, that still looks crappy. So we went out and bought some polyurethane. And so we polyurethane the entire thing that same day. And so we left it overnight, and then when we came back, the entire floor was hazy. Like there was like not smooth or something. And it was like, oh, we just ruined this floor, and we're gonna pay. You're gonna have to pay for this. But until we took a rag, and all the baby oil seeped up through the polyurethane.
Okay. And
got on top of the polyurethane. And what that did to the polyurethane, it made it like glass.
Wow.
It was beautiful. All we had to do was wipe up the oil, which was still wet, but the polyurethane dried. And the polyurethane was like a glass finish.
Wow.
It was amazing. So I tried to duplicate that a few other times, and it just didn't work. But that was one trial and error thing that actually worked. And they were still upset about it because they didn't do it. And
Oh, well.
sorry.
So, had that little sense of adventure and
Yeah.
gonna do it your way anyhow.
So we eloped out here, Betsy and I. We went back, spent a few more months. I had to teach some bands and stuff like that. And then we decided to move out here, but only for a year. Headed to San Diego. And we were going to, I was going to be a performer, a drummer. So we decided maybe spend a year here in Las Vegas. And we did quite a few trips to San Diego. And come to realize that there's more jobs here in music too than there are in San Diego. There's nothing in San Diego. The union wasn't strong, and it was horrible. And so we basically stayed because every time I'd turn around, they didn't want me to play drums for them, any musicians. They always wanted me to record them. And, so that's the bread and butter, right? So it's still related to music. I still think my degree is worth something, and my degrees. And so that's what I started doing. My uncle turned me on to a job at the library, and this is I was out of work for like a year, basically. I mean, I worked for Walmart and a bunch of under the table places and stuff like that, but never a real job and never a 40-hour. I worked for Walmart for 2 weeks. I couldn't stand it. I hated that. It was awful.
It's not for everybody.
No, especially like before Christmas. So I'm working in sporting goods, and I'm thinking that's okay. I would rather be in electronics. But they wouldn't let me go because that was for the senior children that were working there. So I worked sporting goods, but then they started taking the sporting goods away and filling it up with toys. Because it's before Christmas.
Right.
And I'm like, I am not doing this. And I walked out. So, I didn't even give them 2 weeks notice. I was only there 2 weeks. So I said, I'm done. That's it. So after 11 months, my uncle turned me on to a 5-hour-a-week job with the library district. This is before there was theater technicians. They were just putting the district together. They're combining the Clark County and the Las Vegas libraries, making them one unified district. And so they had a bunch of theaters they were building, and so this was live performance type stuff, but they needed audio people because those guys didn't know what they were doing either when I showed up. And so I came in and I worked my way up to the technician supervisor, programming and technician supervisor, and but now I'm down to just the technical equipment coordinator is, I think, the new title that came up a few years ago. And that's what I've been doing since then. I'm getting ready to retire in about 3 years.
Yeah. So, looking back, one thing we always try to ask is who were the people that influenced you or that took you aside and say, hey, think about this and do this way? Your mentors or the people that you looked up to. Maybe you didn't know them personally, but you just saw what they were doing in life and you wanted to emulate that. Who were some of those people in your life?
I guess my first person I really enjoyed was my band director in high school, Robert Brower. He was great at what he did. What was nice is that the audience, not the audience, the parents, the community liked him, and they gave him a lot of free rein to bring especially the marching band and the concert bands, to its fullest potential. And we won all kinds of awards all the time, best in state, forever and ever and ever. And I graduated high school with with my drum corps experience, and I was called right back immediately after that to teach. What was that, 18, 19-ish? 18, yeah. So that was my first teaching experience, and it was thanks to Bob Brower that, he gave me that opportunity. He even let me do some student teaching while I was in high school. I got to teach elementary school students, so
Wow.
that was pretty fun.
Well, I noticed you're still teaching until today. You teach at the community college now, and then you taught at the Music
Audio,
Institute
right.
when it was here.
Right. So IADT, I filled out an application for International Academy of Design and Technology. It was a for-profit audio school, actually, and I just filled it out. I said, you need to have experience with Pro Tools, and I had some experience with Pro Tools. It's a software application. And they called me one day, and they said, this is Ron Herbis from IADT, and he wants me to come on down and do an interview. And I said, oh, okay, great. But Betsy answered the phone when he called. I said, I don't know any Ron Herbis. And he heard me on the phone. He said, oh, hey. He's like, oh, I was kind of blowing him off. Then I taught there for maybe 3 years. That was okay. But we had this collection of audio professionals, and we made a magazine. I can't remember which it was. We were called the Audio Dream Team for audio education, and who Ron Herbis put together was amazing. And I was part of that. I was so honored to be part of that because I didn't have half the experience some of those guys did. And but I was good enough to be part of that, star team. Fast forward a few years later, I get a call from John Jacobson at the College of Southern Nevada, and asked me to be on his new dream team, which was Ron Herbis was actually part of that team. And they hired me, Kenny, I can't remember Kenny's last name. He's got a Grammy, which is amazing. I'm working side by side with somebody who has a Grammy. That's just like, wow, I feel so honored, that, I'm part of this. And so we're trying to maybe move CSN into offering a degree, actually, in audio. We would be the first state, the first school in the state to offer a degree. UNLV tried it for a minute, maybe a semester, and they failed, so they stopped doing it. CSN is poised right now because we've become Avid certified, a learning partner with Avid, so we can get you guys certified, get the students certified, if they need to get their Avid certification, their Pro Tools certification. So yeah, so I'm part of Dream Team number 2 right currently.
So teaching has been an important part of your life.
It is. It only took me like 53 years to get a teaching job at a state school. That's going to take me another 53 years to, get tenure. So
Hey,
that's what. This is,
one step at a time, okay? No
Right.
sense rushing things.
yeah, being a full-time college professor, most schools are just not doing it. They're not having it anymore. And so, maybe the big, the big schools, Berkeley and the big California schools, but yeah, tenure is just
So one of the things that we do when we get together, we talk music.
yeah.
And I noticed from the little questionnaire that we sent out, you mentioned several drummers that you would listen to growing up. What did you take from each one of them, or what made you want to follow it after listening to these cats? Who were these cats?
One was Gene Krupa. I just loved the way that the sing type of music would happen, and using the toms much more than anything else for the solo sections. That's just that bombastic, pounding drum set stuff. Neil Peart from Rush, of course. Everybody loves Neil Peart. Just his speed and how he would musically take a Rush song and just put in the right percussion here, the right rhythm there, the incredible fills that were on top of that. I like Phil Collins a lot, and because I listened to Genesis growing up, in high school mostly. Genesis with Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel was still wow. I even went to a Peter Gabriel concert. I can't believe it. But Phil Collins has had some great playing back in the day. He played for a group called Brand X. It was a fusion band, and he has the fastest single foot I've ever heard, actually. And there's a lot of Genesis stuff I still like his drumming on, even before he became the soloist in front of Genesis. Before that, just a great playing. Chester Thompson too was with Phil Collins, and the last drummer that I like the best, John Bonham, of Led Zeppelin. He just can't. He's hard to duplicate. He had that mean sound that just, I don't know. Everybody likes John Bonham. Those are my four drummers I look up to. As far as audio goes, though, when I came here, I was working at the library, and I got a job with KNPR.
Which is the local NPR station here.
Yes, the local NPR station. Back then they did jazz, classical, everything, and talk, But Brian Sanders came up to me. I was hanging one of my microphones, or a couple of my microphones, at the library, and he said, "Wow, how can the library afford these microphones?" And I said, "No, they're mine. They can't afford these. I just wanted to make the group sound really good." And he said, "Well, you wanna come work with me to do the Monday Night Jazz from Las Vegas at the Four Queens?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." Brian Sanders, he's a great audio engineer. He interviewed Jaco Pastorius. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is that's a story in itself. But he was working at KNPR back then as one of the lead audio engineers, and so I worked with him doing Monday Night Jazz from the Four Queens for about a year and a half before the Riviera shut us down.
That was a great series there.
Yeah, we were in 138 different stations nationwide, and probably worldwide, I would imagine. And yeah, we'd put out like 2 sets, sometimes 3 sets every week. And it was a lot of work and a lot of fun. I met a whole lot of great jazz players. Just just helping out, and I was part of that dream team too. So no, they shut it all down and turned it into a bingo.
Well, there's progress.
Is history.
But Vegas has made a lot of changes. It used to be back in the day. One of the reasons I think I originally thought to settle here was because they had so many lounge acts. This was before then the musician strike. And what I've subsequently been told is the invention of the synthesizer, which has put a lot of musicians out of work, those 2 elements in particular. And then as the businesses became more franchise, where each part of the hotel, I would imagine, has its own revenue stream. The restaurants are now separate and separately owned from the hotel itself. So it's just a different environment where, when you hear some of the old timers talk about, you can just go from one place to the next. You could work this gig and then leave this gig and walk across the street and work another gig, and then hang out at the after party at another gig, and it was just great for musicians at that time.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find a lounge anymore.
Yeah.
It's just hard to find them. So.
Yeah. And then they don't want you to play because they don't want to hurt their ears by listening to music. And
right. But I'm not trying to move anywhere. I like Vegas for what it is. You can't out Vegas. And I often say that, to me, it's like the Hotel California. You can check out any time you want, but you can never leave. You're the example. I'm just going to do a year in Vegas, and 30, 40 years later, well, not 40 for you, but 30 years later, you're still here.
And a big part of that, too, was that there's jobs here. And there were. A lot of people, they'll take anything, and I was almost ready to do that, but I wanted to, what I paid for in my college, I wanted to do something related to that in my life. And even though Betsy would take any job, I wouldn't.
Well, I guess she figured one of you had to make sure that you ate regularly.
So I made her work, and I just sat at home waiting.
That's not true. I hope it's not true. That's not true, is it?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. It's probably true. Anyhow, so you had the high school teacher was a mentor. Yeah. So as a person now, you've been in the game for a minute. You've seen a lot of students. You've seen a lot of people, worked in a lot of situations. What advice do you have to pass forward? What things have worked for you in your life? What information would you move forward?
The other day, because I bought a second house out in the boondocks in Peart, and a lot of people after that came up to me and said, "Can you show me how to manage money? Because I want to be able to do that." And I said to them, "No, I am not good at managing money. But what I do know about anything that you do is, and it's an old, like a Wall Street type of thing, buy low, sell high. Okay. And don't pay retail for anything." Okay. So he always talk them down or find it at the lowest price possible or close to it. And that way, when it does turn around, you're not hurting, you're not underwater. Just like the house, our first house we bought, $150,000 or so, and that was right, like within 5 years, it was double that, and then it dropped back down to under 150,000. Then it went back up to 350, 400 now.
Well, it's really crazy what they're charging for stuff now.
And people say, "Well, how do you do it?" It's like, well, you can refinance. Just don't refinance the whole thing, but don't come to me for money issues, because I spend money like a crazy man. I'll spend. I think people say you have too much stuff, and yeah, I got a lot of stuff, but I take care of it, and it hopefully doesn't depreciate. And as long as I'm using it, I think it's still a worthy investment. Not too many things just sit on the shelf, and
So I know you have a son, Max. What advice you give him?
I wanted him to go to college, and he tried, but I think he did it the wrong way. Where it's like, to get into a degree program, you have to have good grades. Well, he wanted to just go in before entering any degree program and take all the hard classes first. Well, if you take all the hard classes, you're going to get a lot of fails. And those fails count against you getting into a degree program. So he should have gone in and taken beer making, bowling, pizza cooking, all those throwaway classes that give you an easy A or whatever. Then once they let you in as a degree student, then you can take those hard classes. And you're already in, it takes a little bit more to get rid of you. You have to maintain a certain degree, a certain grade level. And so he really, I think he kind of messed up his chances of getting in there. But I don't think he likes college, so.
Well, that could be the thing. Is he a college kid? Everybody's not cut out for it.
Yeah, I was more of a social animal when I was in high school, college. I was the kind of guy that would like blend with whatever group I was with. Now, I was never the leader of any of those groups, but I could always fit in somewhere. I always had some degree of respect they had for me and I had for them. And no matter what group, it was the stoners here or the jocks or the band geeks or the science nerds. I could hang with all of them, which I think that's a good thing about me personally, is that I can associate with other people pretty well.
Cool. So what's next for you?
Oh, I don't know. A few more years, I'm going to be retiring from the library for sure. I'm trying to, get my business going, which is customized multimedia projects. It's sort of like we can provide services, audio-visual multimedia services, and personnel for certain events for other clients and stuff. And then what we do is we take that, like if we get the gig ourselves, we'll either maintain the gig or have others, bring in others to work with it. So like, I took the Aliante Sun City audio gig. It was offered up to me, and I took it, and I said, okay, this is a CMP, Customized Multimedia Projects client. So what we do is we provide audio services to them, try to help them with their equipment purchases, with their performances, trying to help them with their movie time, what they need new projection and stuff like that, audio-visual services.
Cool.
And so that's kind of what I'd like CMP to do. I just need it to be, I think I'm going to take it to a nonprofit status, because it doesn't really make money, but it could sustain a staff, me, and all its equipment, with the nonprofit status. We could probably do that pretty well. What I don't like about it is that if we commit to taking on other people's projects, that we want to have either my name or the CMP's name as a part of that. If it's a part of somebody else's project, we want to take full responsibility for that part of the project. So if we just do audio, like for Blusoul, we want to make sure that the way it sounds excellent according to how we feel about it.
Okay.
And if it changes after that, then the partnership, might have to change in certain ways. Like we wouldn't be CMP as part of the audio program. It would be under the direction of, somebody else.
Yeah, you want to have the work represent your work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes we've taken on projects where we've been asked to take it from concept to completion, and then halfway through getting it to completion, the client wants to take it back and say, okay, that's no longer you.
That's not fair.
And that's fair enough, as long as we get paid for it, the work that we did do. And two, once you change it back to something else, don't put my name on it anymore. So, I work with some other people that, I took a character and I brought it to a certain level, and of a public level, and now it's in the hands of the actual creator, and it's really watered down now. So,
Yes. As they say, people get in where they fit in.
Yeah.
They do what they can.
Right.
Yeah. So, I do know from talking with you over the years that you've had some other musical aspirations. You said you work on a symphony at one point. You still have ideas to do something like that, and why?
Well, with this writing a symphony, I'd love to. I can't even write a song anymore because I got so many irons in the fire in other projects that it's hard to just concentrate on that one aspect of it. That's difficult. I have some ideas too for a theatrical play, to do something like an old 1940s movie. Think of something like an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Okay.
But take that and put it on stage, right? So, and don't do it in color.
Okay.
Have all white lighting and shades. All makeup will be gray.
Okay.
And you won't see any color, and it'll look just like you're watching it on television, but it's live.
Okay.
Isn't that cool? Just the concept of whatever it is.
So you describe the look, but not a story.
A look, well, it can be whatever story, you can make a story. I don't propose on making the story, but I'm thinking of like Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds.
Yeah.
Or something without color, though.
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain or something like that. Something you would watch on TV, a made-for-TV movie that was in black and white back in the day, an old detective movie or whatever, and just put it on stage.
Yeah, it was one of the dance companies that the library presented earlier in, I guess it was last year, had that sort of a concept.
Did they?
Yeah, it was nicely done actually. I think it was a group out of L.A.
So it was in black and white on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
color.
it was a film. It was like a film noir.
Yeah.
But danced out with a film component, as well as dancers and no talkie, but everything was in. The villain woman had the red with a little hat over her side.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really nicely done.
Oh yeah, just the hat was red.
Her
and everything
costume was red. I think her hat was black.
Yeah.
It was that little, tilted to the side.
You know how they do that colorizing where you just like the lipstick is red, like Sin City. That something like that would be really cool on stage to do it live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be great. But.
Well, I'm glad you talk with us and share some of who you are. Like I know I've worked with you over the years, but I didn't know the whole story about really how you got here and how you stayed, and then the many opportunities and projects that you've worked on. I remember that Jazz at the Four Queens series, even before I moved here.
A lot of people.
That was a great series. And this the NPR work. That's NPR. I'm an NPR person to this day. I listen to a lot of their work. Not so much the classical side anymore.
I think they put their classical stuff on a digital station now.
Right.
It's
split off.
It used to be on a separate analog station, but I don't know. I haven't been able to find it.
But it's still good programming.
Yeah.
And anything you want to finish with?
Not really. You asked about mentors, and I worked with a few people. Not necessarily their mentor. They were at first, but Adam Burke. I worked with him. He was with CAMPR. He began the State of Nevada program with them. He's a great person to know, and he's stood up for me a few times to get me on board with certain projects, which was really great of him. I only worked with him a few times, and he turned around and said, "What about Jerry Eadeh?" And I'm just, I get all these phone calls. It's like, okay, how'd you hear of me? Adam Burke. It's like, okay, great, thanks, Adam.
Yeah. I guess one area we really didn't touch on before we close it out I met you as a co-worker with the library district.
Yeah.
We were all technicians at that time, and then each one of us, you, myself, I consider John Bartlett like that three. We all became supervisors for you for the library, John Bartlett for Clark County, and me for the city.
Well, I met you right
cultural.
before that, actually. You were,
Oh, yeah.
your group came in and performing.
The Hittite Empire?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was way back then.
And I was your technician, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and then it's right after that you joined us.
And that was quite happenstance.
And then right after that you went to the city, and then right after that you went to
right. But I know, like, a lot of people, they're surprised at the library district here, where we have world-class theaters. I would consider them world-class because I've been in a lot of places. A lot of cities don't have the types of theaters that we have here. And I know from your position as being the person now responsible for purchasing and maintaining the equipment that you strive to create an environment where the technicians as well as the audience gets the best experience with that, and sort of I guess mentoring in that sense, making sure that we have I'll say we because that's just been a few weeks now since I haven't worked in that environment, but have the best equipment, the digital boards, digital lighting boards, great lighting. You know, when I heard that you guys were spending $15,000 for one light, I'm like, well, you're not paying me enough. It's like, but when you start to listen to the lighting designers, Jody and folks like that who really know that and know what it is, how has that been for you to sort of watch it come from, like you say, nothing, where they didn't even have the theaters built, to being this model, that national model of what libraries can be within communities?
Well, for me, I always, even before I was the equipment coordinator, I would listen to the staff, and if they say we need this, this, and this, I would one, try to find it at the best price possible. Two, consider other equipment that would be as good or better, and always try to move it forward from what we have. Like the latest thing on the, I think the $15,000 instruments. There's a new automatic shutters, DMX shutters, where it can shutter off and give you different angles, without having to climb up on a ladder and push it in or pull it down from the pipe and adjust it, put it back up. Oh, that's not the right size. Pull it back down. Now you just push a couple buttons and you get the look you want. You know, it cuts down on labor costs. It cuts down on maintenance, and moving the whole instruments out of the way, because it's all motorized, and the light sources are LED now. Yeah, so I try to get the best bang for the buck type of thing, always, and try to look for innovative new things. I try not to stay stagnant in the old-fashioned ways. Well, we didn't have that when we were kids, so that's what I want. And it's like, that's not what you want.
Yeah.
To the detriment of myself too. Sometimes some people despise you, moving them forward.
Change is always tough.
It is.
Because I was just speaking with Mr. Suda earlier, and he talked about the process, the concept of some people like to conserve what is, and it becomes disconcerting when things change. You like to do with what you know. And then I guess in the environment that you just described, anytime you're working with professionals who are studied and opinionated and confident of what they do is valuable, they want to have a voice. They want to have us put their mark on what they're doing, because some of those jobs are lifetime jobs for them, 15, 20, 30 years. So they're going to want to say, well, I was a part of this structure. So I guess that collaboration is always good.
Yeah.
But I found that the experience was overall gratifying. I think that the library district in this city does a great service as far as the community is concerned, as far as providing those services.
And they're going away slowly. I mean, the city's going away, the county's going away, even the library is not expanding like it should be. But what can you do? That's the admin. The admin takes it where it wants it to go, and
Well, I think it's going the way of the world. People embracing the smaller digital footprint, and you're looking at some of these buildings now. They're the legacies of a time when people respected live performances and embraced that. Now, people want things on a smaller screen, on a smaller scale. So the new facilities are investing in more screens and more remote control and more digital environments. So they may not see the necessity of moving these theaters forward.
less in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but, they're still good today. But I was just curious because it's not often that you find people that stay in these spots 25, 30 years anymore.
Yeah.
The new models, you do 5 years, you go to the next thing, you go to the next thing.
Well, back in the day, Vegas used to be nothing but transient, and when they'd ask you a question, 30 years ago, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, I'm going to be in L.A. making movies, and
Right.
that's like, well, that wasn't always a good answer then, and a lot of those people would just go away, and it was way more transient than it is nowadays. Nowadays, people they like to have that job security too. But with the pandemic and any kind of recession or anything like that, a lot of people lose those jobs and they become that transient group again. So some of them can't hang on to that because they gotta feed their family or whatever.
Right. Well, this has been good. Jerry, Eadeh, thank you very much. This has been Conversations, The Journey. I'm your host, Ellis Rice, and we look forward to having you go with us on our next journey. Peace.